Welcome to Martial Arts World Radio. I'm your host, Joseph Clark. Do you have what it takes to be a champion at what you do? How do you measure success? We ask these and other relevant questions of today's martial arts stars. Each week in every show, we speak to different fighters from the UFC, Olympic martial arts medalists, and world champion martial artists or kickboxing icons, many of whom have gone on to become stars of martial arts cinema. Over the next hour, we have two interviews. The first with professional MMA fighter and co-star of The Ultimate Fighter, Gentleman Josh Hill. The second with 6 times Miss Olympia, Cory Everson. I have a book to bring to your attention. Check out 21st Century Perspectives on Martial Arts at Amazon. Also, for UFC and Everlast apparel, video games, and training equipment, check out our show website at www.mawradio.com. This week's inspirational quote is from Vince Lombardi and goes as follows: "It's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get back up." Vince Lombardi, 1913 to 1970.
Hi, I'm Don the Dragon Wilson, and you're listening to Joseph Clark at Martial Arts World Radio.
Gentleman Josh Hill is a professional MMA fighter in the bantamweight division who has an impressive record of 15 wins, 2 losses. He was a member of Team Tate in the Ultimate Fighter reality television program, Team Rousey vs. Team Tate. Josh, welcome to Martial Arts World Radio.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Josh, you were a fighter on the reality television program, The Ultimate Fighter. Tell us about the tryouts and the process to get selected for the program.
Yeah, it actually happened pretty quick. I heard the tryouts. I was watching a fight one day, and they said they had an open tryouts the following month. So I knew for sure I'd be, a good candidate for it. I think I was 9-0 at the time, and so we went down there to Vegas. We flew out, and there was like 300 plus applicants there. It was a long day. We got there at 7:30 a.m. We didn't leave till about 11 at night. So we had to go in. We did like they sign your name up and everything like that. They give you a number, and then you go in and you do an open grappling workout. So you get like 90 seconds, and they match you up with somebody, and you grapple, and they watch you, and then they make cuts from there. And then they also do a striking portion, the same thing. You just do pads, and they make more cuts. And then you have your first interview process, which is like the biggest part of it. And you kind of go in there, and one of the producers just kind of rips on you a bit and just sees on your reaction and how you are and your personality and whatnot. And I think that's where they make their most cuts. And then if you make that, you stay for the night, and they put you up at the hotel. And then the following day, we got to do a bunch of medicals, and then more interviews. I think I had like 2 more interviews after that. And then they send us home. They say, you're going to get a call, and either you're going to be fighting to get on the show, or you're not selected, one of the two. So kind of train like you are. And I think it was like a month or 2 later, I got a call, and they said, you've been picked, and you're going to be fighting to get on. And that's kind of how it went.
Josh, how were your nerves throughout this process compared to leading up to a fight?
It was tough, really tough, actually. I had a lot going on in my life at the time. I had some family issues happening right when all this was going on. So the tryouts or leading up to the house and in the house was a really, really kind of tough time for me. But I wish it could have happened, even a year earlier or a year later would have been better. But it is what it is. It's just kind of bad timing. But other than that, I was really excited. I remember watching The Ultimate Fighter back before I even started training, let alone fighting. So it's to show that probably all fighters, would at some point strive to get on or another platform in their career. So I was really, really pumped.
How excited were you when you got the call that you were going to be on the show?
Yeah, I had a good feeling for it. We had spoke with the UFC prior to the tryouts, so they knew who I was. And so, being going in there, Canadian guy, and had a good record, I was undefeated, 9-0. I knew I had a really good shot to at least get on, the fight to get on. So, but I was pumped. I remember I was eating dinner. I got the call, and I was training like I was fighting, but I was really, really excited.
Josh, do you believe in leaving it all in the cage, or do you try to be strategic?
Yeah, actually, I have had split decisions. I've had two, actually. But I do believe that they should have been unanimous. I don't think they should have been split decisions. I thought I won the fight entirely, and the majority of other people thought so as well. But yes, no, I try to go out there in every fight and hopefully get the finish. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if it does go to judges' scorecards, I want to be 100% sure that I was dominant in that fight and I got that win. So obviously, the more finishes would be better for me, and that's something I'm working on and striving to do. But yeah, I've experienced kind of all wins, subs, knockouts, and decisions. So got a little wide variety of everything.
On The Ultimate Fighter, your season was Team Rousey versus Team Tate. What was the experience like in the house and in the gym?
It was cool. I was on Misha's team, and right away, I got along with Misha and all the coaching staff that came with her, and same with the guys and the girls on my team. I had a solid team, and even with Ronda's team, I got along with everybody in the house really, and I still talk with almost all of them today. And it was cool. It was definitely different because you're not with your teammates, you're not with your coaches or your friends. You're totally in a different atmosphere with people you don't know, and you're being filmed with everything. But I really enjoyed it. It was, being in the house, it was, it can get really boring. Sure. You don't have any, no TV, no music, no magazines, no nothing. All you can really do is just hang out and eat, which is awesome. But at the same time, you got to watch your weight because you got to make weight within 2 days. So it's kind of like a torturous, actually, because you can order any food you want, but within 2 days you got to be able to make 135. So it's not like you go out there and just eat whatever. But other than that, man, it was really cool. I'm really happy I did it. Like I said, I wish the timing was a little bit different, but other than that, it was such a really great experience.
Josh, at what age did you begin martial arts?
I started later, actually. I never came from a martial arts background growing up. I was a hockey player and played rugby and baseball growing up, but I started training when I was about 21. I began, sort of, when I was finishing my junior career in hockey, and obviously I knew I wasn't going anywhere with that. It was more so just for the competition. And once that was going to be done, I just, I don't know, I'm very competitive. I like physical sports. So I needed something else to keep me going. And, I've tried grappling in the past and whatnot, and I really, had a thing for it. And I did pretty well as somebody that never had any training. When all of our buddies would get around, and I was usually the smaller guy, and I held my own pretty well against the bigger guys. So, it was just something I always wanted to do, and I was always a fan of fighting, and I always watched, UFCs and Prides, and the WC was my favorite organization back in the day. And I gave it a go at 21-ish, and then I had my first pro fight a month before my 23rd birthday.
Still quite young for a pro fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was a bit different, too, because I never had any amateur fights, which nowadays would, it's not usually like that. I just kind of jumped right into pro. The only sense of competition I did have leading up to that was several submission grappling tournaments. But I never had any boxing fights or kickboxing fights or any amateur MMA fights. I just kind of jumped right into pro, and could have ended badly for me, but it ended up working out pretty well.
Josh, did you have a good coach or mentor who prepared you for your professional debut?
Yeah, my coach Alan Hamajin. He was my lead striking coach, all coming up, and he was confident in my abilities, I think, and he put me in there, and I had other fighters that I was training with on the same card, and so I kind of looked up to them and kind of went by what they were doing, and it was a really fast learning experience for me. But it really launched my career pretty quick, and also making my pro debut was actually on the Score, back when the Score was around. They were filming it, so I got my first ever pro fight on national television, and actually won knockout of the night too on it. So more people even in because of that. So it worked out. Couldn't have worked out better for me actually to have your debut.
On The Ultimate Fighter, did you have much interaction with Ronda Rousey?
Not a whole lot, because I was on Misha's team, but I did, hang out with them, with Ronda's team a lot, and, I got along with her. She's very edgy. Like, she's kind of got, like, I don't know, that always kind of got that chip on her shoulder type attitude, but at the same time, like, she was able to be chill with her, and she was fine. Like, I got along with her, nothing bad to say about her at all.
So that competitive intensity that we see when she's being interviewed or leading up to a fight, that really is the real Ronda Rousey.
Yeah. Obviously, she lightens it up when she's just around amongst friends and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I've never seen her outside of that element really, because even on the show, even when we were just relaxing, it was still had to do with the show and had to do with the fight and whatnot. So I'm sure once she's totally outside of it, I'm sure she's a lot more mellowed out person.
Josh, would you share with us your philosophy and your psychology to being a champion?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part, and that's the part I'm still working on, really. I don't think there's a set way of doing anything. I think it's all about the individual, and, there's all types of different paths in this sport. I would advise any young person that's not to get into it, don't get into it to make money. That would be my number one thing, because that doesn't come very easy, and many don't get there. And if that's where your heart's at, I think it's you won't end up there anyway. But I'd say it's a grind. Prepare yourself for that grind. It's like anything else, and nothing's gonna come easy in the sport at all for most people. And yeah, like they're gonna have ups and downs along the way. Nothing's gonna be just clean cut how you thought it's gonna end up. But I think persistence is probably the biggest word to use in this sport. The more you put in, the more you'll get out. And if you're willing to do the work, it'll definitely pay off in the end. But yeah, it's a game of it's a mental game for sure. And the weak-minded tend to fade away, and it's only the strong ones that end up fulfilling their dreams, or at least attempting to fill their dreams to the best of their abilities.
Josh, now stepping outside of the cage and outside of the gym, what has been your most difficult life lesson that you've experienced yet?
I don't know. I would just have to say losing loved ones. Really, I think there's nothing worse than that. I think, everybody has something everybody has to go through and everybody has to deal with. So I would say that would be the number one, of course. And then maybe just kind of has to do with my career, the strain of being in a relationship with a mixed martial arts fighter. It's not your average 9 to 5. I'm going to work and I'm coming home and that's it for the night. My training hours are all over the place. I'm traveling. I'm doing this, doing that. So it is a unique lifestyle, and it can be one that's difficult to live with or to be in a relationship with. So that definitely puts a strain on things, and a lot of relationships have been sacrificed in my career. So that's something that I've had to learn and live through. So that's obviously been pretty tough for me as well.
Josh, who were your inspirations growing up?
Yeah, well, one guy that I always looked up to in the sport was Uriah Faber. He was always one of my favorite fighters growing up, watching him. Like I said, back in the WEC days. And I've had the chance to actually, that's my second gym is Team Alpha Male out in Sacramento. I go out there and train for a majority of my fights. So, now I know him also on a personal level, and he's become more of a friend and a training partner now than just a guy that I watch on TV fight. But yeah, he's been somebody I definitely look up to in this sport. Also because he has a very good business sense, good business mind. He's not just a fighter; he's a business owner, and he has multiple things. And that's something I'd like to do too. I'd like to branch out, like I have been doing, and because I know I can't fight forever, obviously. So I want to use this platform of mixed martial arts to kind of venture out into other things, for things I can do after when I'm done fighting.
Josh, is there anything that I haven't asked you today that you think is relevant that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I would just say, I'm your average guy that just is trying to, follow what he loves the most in this world, and that's just competition, and mixed martial arts is where I've kind of fallen, and I've just, I'm trying to be the best bantamweight in the world, especially the best bantamweight in Canada, and I'm still on that, that path and that pursuit. Like I said, there's been ups and downs already in my career, more ups than downs, which is great. But, I'm just trying to live out a dream and have some fun while I'm doing it. I don't want to be that, boring, everyday, same, routine lifestyle. I know some people like that. It's just not me. I like variety. I like change, like something new every day and have a uniqueness to my life. So that's kind of why I follow in this career path, I think.
Josh, this is our wrap-up question for this interview. You alluded earlier that one of your most difficult life challenges was overcoming the grief of losing a loved one. So on that line, would you have some advice for our listeners or share some feelings with our listeners on how you dealt with that grief and how you overcame that loss?
Like I said, everybody's different. Everybody deals with things their own way. My way to deal with that was to get actually back to the gym more so. I think that's kind of a place where I felt it was a fun atmosphere. My training partners and friends are all there. I felt comfortable. That's where I go and I have fun before and after and during training. So that was kind of my outlet of the way to relieve things and talking with those people there that I trust and whatnot, and them being there for me and whatnot. So that was kind of my outlet. But everybody's different, whether that's, going to the gym or going to talk to somebody or going to whatever. But I'd say just do something that you really love and you're comfortable with, and kind of, that's your kind of way of expressing your feelings. And
Josh, this has been informative and entertaining. Thank you for taking the time today, and all the best. I have no doubt that we are speaking to a future world champion.
Thank you, sir. And appreciate it anytime. I'll be happy to come back.
This has been an interview with professional mixed martial artist and co-star of The Ultimate Fighter, gentleman Josh Hill.
This is UFC fighter Jason Sago. You are now listening to Martial Arts World Radio with Joseph Clark.
For those of you listening to Martial Arts World Radio while on your phones, tablets, or laptops, be sure to check out www.worldblackbelt.com, the world's foremost martial arts online community. Also, check out our show website for the advertisement for London Sports. London Sports is a provider of quality sports apparel and equipment at factory prices, which you can brand with your organization's distinctive logo to resell to your members and customers. Just visit www.mawradio.com and click on the London Sports logo to send your inquiry. Cory Everson is a 6 times Miss Olympia, International Federation of Bodybuilding Hall of Fame inductee and actress. She has weight trained with Chuck Norris and Bob Wall, and she starred in Double Impact with Jean Claude Van Damme and Bolo Yeung. She is a bodybuilding icon. Cory, this is truly a privilege. Welcome to Martial Arts World Radio.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. This is really going to be fun for us.
Now, you won Miss Olympia 6 years in a row during a time in which bodybuilding was at the forefront of the mainstream. It was an amazing era for bodybuilding. How do you feel about that?
I feel so grateful and so blessed and so privileged to have been in this amazing sport that during the time period that I was in it. I mean, the sports was different before I was in it, and it's definitely different after I was in it, and I just feel like I was in the golden years when it was so pure and so beautiful and so much, and everybody was friends with each other. I'm still friends with the girls that I competed against. One of my very best friends is Bev Francis, and she still is.
Of course.
So it was, like I said, I just feel unbelievably humbled and blessed that I was in it when I was.
Do your children recognize how popular and respected and recognized you were around the world at that time in the sport of bodybuilding?
I think they do now. I mean, my kids are 18 and 19 now. And initially, I don't know if they really understood the whole thing, but it was usually the parents of their friends in like elementary school and grade school that would recognize me. And I don't really think they really got it until maybe high school. Then they kind of really understood it. And it was funny when we adopted Nina from Russia. The people in the Russian embassy recognized me, and it was so amazing. There was all these people adopting kids, and a room full of nervous first-to-be parents adopting kids from orphanages, and all of a sudden these big Russian, like, security guard, big, beautiful guys came up, and they, were saying, "We need to see your visa." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, what happened? Did we do something wrong? Did we fill the paperwork out wrong? I'm so nervous. What's going to happen? Are they going to take my daughter away?" They looked at my visa and they go, "Just what we thought. You're Cory Everson. You must take pictures with us." It was like so amazing. I mean, it was so amazing, and I am actually astonished that things come up, almost on a daily basis where somebody will still recognize me, and I don't even remember. I mean, I don't look at myself every day and go, "Oh, I'm Miss Olympia." I just look at myself like I'm a mom. And it's kind of neat when people go, "Oh yeah, I remember you when you were competing," and so it is kind of it is neat that people still remember.
Cory, you co-starred in Double Impact with Jean Claude Van Damme and Bolo Yeung. Would you please tell us about that experience?
Oh my gosh, Bolo Yeung, and Jean Claude, amazing people, and it was, I've gotten to do a number of different parts, from Hercules to Lois and Clark, to the Double Impact, and I never really had an agent or went out on calls or anything. So it was mostly when somebody would say, "Oh yeah, do you want to be in my movie, or do you want to do this?" And my sister and I, usually we would do parts together, and we'd be like, "Okay, that'll be fun." And so when I went to Hong Kong to shoot Double Impact with those guys, they were like, they're athletes, I felt like, they were my brothers. And Jean Claude was married to Gladys Portuguese, who was the person I competed with. So, in that case, too, it felt like I was going to do a fun project with family versus being way too nervous, about thinking that this was going to be my big career was acting. It wasn't. It was more of was a part that I got, and I loved it, and it was fun. It was a great experience, and Jean-Claude was absolutely charismatic, and Bolo, just super stud. I mean, I don't know how many movies that guy has been in, but it was really a wonderful experience. I was away from home for a long time. I remember I was so homesick for my dogs, and I was gone for so long, and, I'd never really been away from, my husband at the time, Jeff, and my dogs, and so I did get a little homesick. So I remember I did a whole bunch of artwork, and in my room at night when I wasn't shooting, I would do artwork, and I did lots and lots of beautiful artwork that I still have hanging up in my house today.
And Cory, at the time that you were filming Double Impact and when it was released, I would say that was pretty well at the height of Jean Claude Van Damme's success as a martial arts film star. Bolo Yeung, of course, a kung fu practitioner who I've interviewed many times. I've had the privilege to interview many times. He was also a former professional bodybuilder like yourself. I've also interviewed his son, David Yeung, who is a former professional bodybuilder. So I see what you mean. There's not a lot of degrees of separation between yourself and that action cinema community. It must have seemed like family, as though you were working within a fraternal network.
Well, yes, and plus I was always friends with Bob Wall and Chuck Norris. And so the place I would work out, Bob Wall and Chuck Norris would train. And so I knew them, and I would do things with some of Chuck Norris's events, that he would do, and I'd go and speak. And so, it really is kind of like a brotherhood, and of athletes or whatever field you're in, when you are around those people, whether it's, engineering people or musicians or actors or, as in my case, athletes, it is really a brotherhood, and I love that.
From 1980 to 1989, you had a very busy competitive career. What would a day of training look like?
Okay, so first of all, I was a terminal overtrainer, and I never quite learned how to, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and, my theory was always I'm not the biggest and I'm not the strongest, so I have to be the best combination of all of it. I have to be the best proportion, the best, good definition, good proportion, and a decent amount of muscle, because I was never going to be the most defined, and I was never going to be the biggest. And so I think I overtrained a lot because I didn't really know how not to. And here's a typical day. I would get up in the morning, and I would go to the gym, and I would do an entire body part, like back, for example, and I did lots and lots of sets, and lots of reps. And then I would maybe do an hour of cardio, hour of the stationary bike or treadmill, and then I would go have lunch, and I'd go to the gym, and I'd go to a different gym, and then I would do my bodybuilding routine, posing routine, which is incredibly fatiguing because you're thinking, you're creating, you're dancing, you're moving, you're flexing, and it is so fatiguing you have no idea. Well, you have an idea, but it's like that tension posing and all that stuff is fatiguing. It's a workout in itself. Then I'd be exhausted by then. So then I would take a couple hours break, maybe have another snack or another meal, and then I'd go to the gym again because now I had to do my second body part. So if I did back in the morning, I did bis and tris in the afternoon. And then would do, maybe sometimes my friend and I, my training partner Darcy, we would do this giant walk where I live. It's like 4 miles, but it's hills. By the time nighttime came, I could hardly crawl up the stairs, and, I'd fall asleep half the time at the bottom of the stairs. I was so tired. But that was kind of like pre-contest, when I was trying to get really lean, and try to keep my muscle at the same time. In the off-season, I didn't do as much cardio. I still did the split workout where I do a body part in the morning and a body part at night, but I didn't add in all the stationary biking and the cardio and all that stuff. So I, eased up a little bit.
And diet is a huge part of the bodybuilding game. Did you find it challenging to be on such a strict diet regimen for all of those years?
Honestly, I never really was. I think nowadays, like I watch my friends. I have a friend who's a Masters bodybuilding champion, Greg Hartley, and I can't believe how strict. And Jill Bierman, some of my friends, they come to my house and they'll spend the weekend here, and they measure their food, they weigh their food. They're unbelievably strict. In my day, I don't know if anybody else was that strict, but I certainly wasn't. And I never weighed my food or measured it. I ate kind of what I wanted. I knew not to eat really high-fat foods and a lot of sugars because I never really done that anyway. So the dieting part wasn't as hard for me because I didn't take it that part of it so scientifically. It was more of the training. I was always exhausted because I was always training. And then it was almost like I couldn't eat enough because I trained so much and so hard that I almost wasn't eating enough to maintain that muscle because I was kind of watching my diet. I'd eat oatmeal in the morning with a bunch of egg whites, and at lunch I'd have like a tuna fish sandwich on rye bread, yes, with mayonnaise in it. And I'd eat like pretzels and stuff for snacks, and I never really had protein powder at that time. I actually use protein powder now. I love it, but when I was competing, I really didn't use a lot of protein powder. I didn't use supplements. I just tried to eat as healthfully as I could, but I was not like, I remember traveling with Bertil Fox and Matt Mendenhall and some of the bodybuilders at the during the day, and they were so strict and had to have their 3 or 4 chicken breasts per meal with white rice, and they were very, very, very strict. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm not, am I doing something wrong? I'm not as strict as they are. Am I messing up my body by not being so strict? But then again, what I did worked for me. So I think everybody has their own routine, and they know how their body works, and they know what they normally eat, and they know what they need to do to get into shape. And, my theory all along, from the minute I started competing, to this day, is I don't like my body weight to get so much out of shape where you have to diet so strictly to get into shape. I still, to this day, weigh about the same exact weight that I weighed when I was competing, and I weighed that when I was in high school. And I've never varied more than 10 pounds in my body weight, and I'm 5'9", and so, you see some people that gain 30 pounds and then lose 30 pounds. I would never do that because I think it's too hard on your body and too hard on your metabolism to do something like that.
Cory, do you have advice for our listeners about combining weight training with their martial arts training?
Weight training is it's absolutely key, I think, for every single sport, whether you're a track athlete, a gymnast, a swimmer, a martial arts fighter. I watched Chuck Norris and Bob Wall training in the gym. I watched Bolo training in the gym. I watched Jean Claude training in the gym. And I think it's really important because, first of all, when you do weight training, it's very controlled. You're developing the muscle. You're developing the synapses. You're developing the ligaments and the tendons and all the structures around, a joint carefully and controlled. And so I think weight training is strengthening all those joints that are being twisted and, flexed and moved around, when you're fighting. But also, of course, the flexibility is a key too. So, the stretching, going through full ranges of motion. And what I did, like when I was a track athlete, instead of doing super heavy weight, for limited repetitions, we would do higher repetitions with less weight so that you're getting the muscle endurance, which I think the fighters also need. They need the strength, but they also need the muscle endurance. So it's not so much about the massive amount of weight that you can lift, but it's about lifting a certain amount of weight over the long haul and keeping your energy level up and keeping the strength in the muscles.
Cory, throughout your professional bodybuilding career, did you have much of an interaction or friendship with Arnold Schwarzenegger? Yeah,
he's the most wonderful man. I met him, I think, way back in 1980 or 1982, and I was in California on vacation from Madison, Wisconsin, where I went to college, and I met him, and he was so nice and so kind, and I'm German, and he's Austrian, and so we were able to communicate in German, and so I think he kind of liked that because my mom and dad came from Germany, and he became friends with my mom, and there was a time when I was in the hospital with a blood clot, right out of college, and he wrote me a postcard, and it was the kindest thing, just to get better, and he was really thoughtful, and, Arnold is a very, very, very loyal person to his friends, and, and then my mom actually got a blood clot as well, and she was in the hospital, and Arnold actually called her when she was in the hospital, and, I've had many, many, many occasions to interact with Arnold, and he's always just, as soon as he sees me and my sister, he'll stop and he'll be like, "Oh, the girls are here. Cory, Cameo, come here. I want to introduce you to my friends." And, Mom's over there. He just completely stops, and he loves my mom, and, I think, as big of a star as he is, and as many people are always clinging to him and clawing at him and wanting to take pictures and wanting to get his autograph, I think he deals with that really, really well because it's not that easy, when you want to go and have a cup of coffee with your friend and he's being mauled by people. I think he deals with that celebrity really, really well, better than just about anybody I can imagine. And so, yes, he was a friend and an icon, and I looked up to him and what he was achieving, and although it wasn't in my heart to become that actor, he was driven in that direction. I wasn't. I respected it, and I still love his movies, and I know that there's been some bad rap about him, in the past, but all I can say is I have utmost respect for him, and I really, really think he's an amazing man.
Cory, is it true that you are a fan of professional female mixed martial artist Ronda Rousey?
Oh, gosh, yes. I love her. Absolutely. I remember we were in Mexico on vacation, and we had to go to somebody's house to watch the event, one of the events that she was in. So, yes, we are fans. Absolutely.
So for any of our listeners who may have some kind of communication with Ronda Rousey, you might want to let her know that 6-time Miss Olympia Cory Everson is a fan. Cory, who is your favorite martial artist?
Oh, okay. I have to say Chuck Norris, just because he's my friend. So, yep, I'm going to stick with that one. Although when I grew up, I was so in love with Bruce Lee, I can't even tell you. We used to go to these, I lived in Chicago, and my boyfriend and I, we used to go to these movies where there'd be like 4 or 5 Bruce Lee movies all in a row. And, you know, just so motivating. I mean, we'd leave the theater, we were so motivated. But anyway, so yeah, I'm going to stick with Chuck.
So, Cory, a change of pace here. You and I have spoken previously about perspective-changing life challenges. I shared with you that my eldest daughter had a health scare recently in which we thought we were going to lose her. We almost did. Thankfully, we did not, and she is healthy again. You shared with me a similar experience which you had with your daughter when she was quite young. What is learned from these perspective-changing, life-affecting experiences?
I think perseverance, and I think, you know, like I always told my daughter, you know, after she got out of the hospital, and I had taken pictures, you know, with her in the hospital and of her, you know, when she could finally be around other people and have the dogs coming in and, you know, pictures of her and her, I don't know how many MRIs she had, like 14 or 15 of them. But I remember telling her, one day you're going to use this experience and you're going to help people in need, and you're going to help people who are struggling because you've gone through this struggle, and you know that you survived it, and you know that, you know, God was watching over you, and we all pray for you, and, you know, you're a daughter of God, and you're loved and you're blessed, and you are going to be fine. And so, you know, I would always tell her, one day you are going to use this experience, and you're going to help people who are scared, and you're going to help people who are in pain, and you're going to help people who feel as though they want to give up, and you're going to tell them not to. And I had a similar situation with myself, actually, when I was 21 years old, and I had a blood clot, and I almost had my leg amputated. And it was this freak thing, and no one knew why it happened or where it came from, and I was an athlete, and I was in good shape, and all of a sudden I had a blood clot, and they didn't know, and it was like completely from my toes all the way up to my hip, and they'd never seen anything like that. And they were talking about amputating my leg, and I was in intensive care for 6 weeks, in critical care for 4 weeks, and then I had to learn to walk again. And then I competed like almost a year later, and I was really skinny and lost so much muscle. But it didn't matter to me because, you know, I basically proved the doctor's wrong. It's like, no, I'm going to be able to walk. I'm going to be able to compete. I'm not going to be limping. I'm going to, you know, and, you know, I think it just creates strength in you because I remember when I was in the hospital and I told my daughter to do the same thing, I said, you can do a lot of self-healing by positive self-talk. And I would talk to myself like for hours at night, and I'd tell myself for my blood to get better, for my blood to start flowing. I would tell my body to heal. I would visualize my blood going through my veins clearly and easily, and I would visualize these things. And I'm not kidding you. I swear, I think that all helps. And I am serious about that. I think positive self-talk will help heal your body, and it will definitely heal your mind, but it will definitely heal your body because, you know, we are in control of that. And so I told my daughter to do the same thing when she was in the hospital too, and even though I never left her side, you know, I would keep saying, Nina, tell yourself you're getting better, and tell yourself, you know, this staph infection is going away, and it works. So, you know, it's every time you have an adversity where you get knocked down and you can get back up again, you become that much stronger, and you become more humble, and you become more caring of other, I think, of other people too, because it's like life is so short and life is so precious, and if you learn at an early age not to take advantage of that, then you'll be a better person to yourself and to everybody around you as well.
Cory, some great wisdom there. Now we're going to have to wrap up our interview, so I have one more question for you. You divorced Jeff Everson in 1996. You kept his last name for professional reasons. Divorces can be difficult. For some, it can be the most difficult experience of their lives, especially if they're emotionally dependent on that individual. In fact, some people are emotionally dependent on the situation they're in. So it can be a very difficult experience for people to go through a divorce, a very difficult life experience. Did you come out of that stronger?
Yes, it was. Actually, Jeff and I are still to this day like extremely close and good friends, and my kids call him Uncle Jeff. And the thing with Jeff and I, we were like this magical couple that everybody thought we were just like perfect. And and although we got along great, we never fought ever. We had different goals in our life, and I wanted a family, and he really didn't. And so, it was less of any kind of like an anger between us that there was a divorce. It was more of, this is where I want my life to go. I want to have kids. I want to have a family. And he really didn't. And I think he didn't really want to have a family. Now I was a lot younger then, of course, but I think now, after thinking about why he really didn't want to, I think it's because his father was a very sick man with diabetes. And I think he was afraid that he could pass on a gene. His dad had both legs amputated from diabetes. He didn't take care of himself. He, went blind. It was a horrible experience for Jeff to see. And so I think he was kind of protecting himself and future children by just saying, I'm not going to have kids, and I don't want to have kids. And so I think that's a sad thing, because he's lost out on such a beautiful joy of life is by not having a family. But, on the other hand, my family is still his family. And so I think I came out stronger. I don't know if I'd say better, but I was really dependent on him. He was my college sweetheart, and we had been, kind of been inseparable since I went to college. So I think, it says to you, life goes on, no matter how bad you think it is at the moment and how scary it is, life does go on. And it also says, just make sure you have a good family around you, which is a number of things. It's your mom and your dad and your brothers and your sisters, that will help support you during a hard time, but also, the church. I'm a Christian, and there are so many people that can help you at your local churches, and that's what we do. We love people, and I even got Jeff to go to church with us, and so it's I don't know if divorce always has to be so bad. I think it's more of just like, I don't think it's a good thing, but especially if you have kids. But I think in my case, it was not a bad thing, because I definitely wanted a family, and I have the most amazing family and kids ever, and I'm so grateful for that. They're the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Cory, congratulations on all of your achievements, and most importantly, not just on what you've accomplished, but who you are. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. I just wish you the best of luck with your whole station, and you're a pleasure to communicate with, and I hope our friendship continues on.
As do I, and I'm sure it will. Thanks again. You've been listening to an interview with 6-time Miss Olympia, Cory Everson. Now, here's something really interesting, and it goes back to ancient Greece and the ancient Olympic Games. It is a mixed martial art called pancration. Now, pancration is an ancient martial art which mixes wrestling and boxing. The sport can be traced as far back as the 2nd millennium BCE in the territory of ancient Greece. Its name derives from the ancient Greek words meaning all and strength, or might and power, and it literally means, quote unquote, all of the might. So in 648 BCE, the pancration was introduced as a sporting event in the 33rd Olympic Games, where it joined boxing and wrestling in a category called heavy events. That special group of sports was reserved for the best athletes with the greatest strength and stamina. The pancration event was the ancient crowd's favorite sport. It was believed that a military training based on this formerly unarmed combat system helped the Spartans to excel in hand-to-hand fighting. Soldiers trained in pancration were highly appreciated in the famous Macedonian phalanxes, as Alexander the Great was said to have given them priority in the recruitment of his army. Ancient Greek mythology appoints illustrious mythological figures as the first pancratiasts. Theseus, the founder king of Athens, allegedly used techniques from that martial art to defeat the Minotaur, the half-human, half-bull creature locked in the labyrinth of Minos. Hercules is said to have won in pancration contest in Olympia, as well as in another event organized by the Argonauts. Those are the heroes that went on a quest for the Golden Fleece. He reputedly used pancration skills in one of his 12 labors, too. Many Greek vases depict images of the hero defeating the Nemean lion with a specific strong lock believed to be part of the pancration fighting methods. So the ancient Greeks were mixed martial artists. I have an interesting martial art to discuss with you today, and you may have already heard of it. It's called Krav Maga. It is a self-defense system developed for the Israeli Defense Forces that consists of a wide combination of techniques sourced from Aikido, Judo, boxing, and wrestling, along with realistic fight training. Krav Maga is known for its focus on real-world situations and its extremely efficient and brutal counterattacks. It was derived from street fighting skills developed by Hungarian Slavic Israeli martial artist Emi Lichtenfeld, who made use of his training as a boxer and wrestler as a means of defending the Jewish quarter against fascist groups in Czechoslovakia in the mid to late 1930s. In the late 1940s, following his migration to Israel, he began to provide lessons on combat training to what was to become the Israeli Defense Forces, subsequently going on to develop the system that became known as Krav Maga. It has since been refined for civilian, police, and military applications. Now here's a bit of a history lesson for you, and it has to do with Wing Chun Kung Fu. The history of Wing Chun is one that can be considered an intermixing of both fact and lore. It is generally accepted that this quick and efficient martial art originated during the 17th century from the far more rigorous and complex forms taught in the Shaolin Temple of southern China. It was around this period when the Manchus came to power in China and began their strict rule in order to keep control. Due to their support for the Ming, the Shaolin monks faced great pressure and ultimate destruction to their temples. Due to these circumstances, the origin of Wing Chun lacks consistent records as martial arts practitioners were forced into hiding. However, the most popularized version of the story of Wing Chun's origin is that of the Buddhist nun Ing Mu. It is said that she was one of 5 leaders of the Shaolin Temple that managed to escape prior to its destruction. With her high level of Shaolin martial arts, she created a form of self-defense which could transcend size, weight, and especially gender. She drew her inspiration for Wing Chun from the movement of animals, primarily the crane. When applied to the human form, these delicate but natural movements required little force to block and strike effectively and efficiently. And lastly, let's talk about French savate. Savate takes its name from the French for old shoe, heavy footwear, especially the boots used by French military and sailors. In the south, especially in the port of Marseille, sailors developed a fighting style involving high kicks and open-handed slaps. It is conjectured that this kicking style was developed in this way to allow the fighter to use a hand to hold on to something for balance on a rocking ship's deck, and that the kicks and slaps were used on land to avoid the legal penalties for using a closed fist, which was considered a deadly weapon under the law at the time. It was known as game from Marseille and was later renamed chausson, slipper, after the type of shoes the sailors wore. In contrast, at this time in England, the home of boxing and the Queensberry rules, kicking was seen as unsportsmanlike. Traditional savate was a northern French development, especially in Paris slums, and always used heavy shoes and boots derived from its potential military origins. Street fighting savate, unlike chausson, kept the kicks low, almost never targeted above the groin, and were delivered with vicious, bone-breaking intent. Parisian savate also featured open-hand blows, in thrusting or smashing palm strikes, or in stunning slaps targeted to facial nerves. Techniques of savate or chausson were at this time also developed in the ports of northwest Italy and northeastern Spain.
This is Lauren Avedon, and you're listening to Martial Arts World Radio with your host, Joseph Clark.
Be sure to check us out at www.mawradio.com and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube by following Martial Arts World Radio. I'm Joseph Clark. Thank you for listening.